Those of you who don't know, I'm actually a chiropractor out of Atlanta. We specialize in functional medicine, functional neurology, all kinds of crazy cool things, lasers, foot baths, detox, biofeedback, um, all that stuff. So when Skylar was born, we literally went to the School of Hard Knocks because we thought we had a lot figured out and it didn't work. Skylar was born with gastroschisis, which is a short gut syndrome. And the biggest issue that she had was what's called acute dehydration syndrome. And what that means is she couldn't absorb waters. And my little whipper dipper is not whipper dipping. Okay. What it looked like, that was just a few hours after she was born. Everything that was on the outside was supposed to be inside and is in that little silo right there. And took weeks to put it in. The problem was it ruptured after she was about a week old. And so she had her first colostomy. She had a septic infection because all of the bowel contents emptied into the abdomen and all that stuff. So it was pretty horrific. And in that time, we had a lot of touch and go moments. And then when they finally put it back together, she had a couple of really good days and she looked like this, but then the acute dehydration syndrome set in. And this is the same day, just a couple hours later. The bowel shut down. She went into dehydration, back in the hospital. So she'd been home for about 30 hours and she had to go back. And then they did took out 17 centimeters of her bowel, her ileocecal valve and all that stuff. So it was really pretty rough. Somebody just drew on the screen and it wasn't me.
Wasn't me.
She was actually fed with a Mickey button, which is they basically punched a hole in her body and went right straight into her stomach. And that was the way that we fed her. And it was force feeds 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it was pretty horrific. At that point, we literally became hydration experts. When she finally came home, she went home 2 weeks before her first birthday. And then they sent her home from the hospital with 100 hours a week of nursing, which means we had 2.5 full-time nurses. Most of them we had 5 nurses at one point that did half-day rotations. So it was pretty crazy. And we went through everything. And what happened is, you'd weigh her every couple hours. And if she lost weight, they literally told us, don't wait for 911 ER to show up. Call 911 and just say, look, I'm going to be the crazy fool speeding on the way to Scottish Rite. I need a police escort. And I'm like, well, why would we not wait for the ambulance? It's because the ambulance won't be able to get a PICC line into her. And if she loses, a half a pound to a pound, you're looking at 10% of her body weight. Oh, so it was pretty hectic. The first time it happens, you're like, this will never happen again, whatever it takes. And the 4th or 5th time, it's pretty unreal because the doctors would actually take her out of the car at the hospital entrance. They weren't waiting inside the ER to check in. They actually came outside and took her out of the vehicle. So it was traumatic, to say the very least. That point, we kind of went crazy on water machines. And that whole concept of I'm not going to waste $4,000 on a machine when I can get one for $1,500, and then you spend $10,000 on cheap water machines and your child gets more sick, you become pretty opposed to it. There is no shortcut. You either buy good or wish you had. Everything you've heard about alkaline water ionizers actually is true. I'm opposed to them. The fact that Kangen water isn't an alkaline water ionizer is the difference. But we'll get into that. She was on force feeds, like I said, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Her bowel would evacuate every morning, and it went everywhere from the pillows, the blankets, the stuffed animals drip out of the crib. We had plastic on the floor under the crib to save the carpet. We had to take a shower with her to clean her up every day. It was literally a nightmare. The gas, the distension. And we did that for years. It wasn't like, oh yeah, it's fine, just go take some time, recover. It was constant because nobody wants to babysit that. I mean, they just don't. Um, and when Amy came into our office in 2012, she used to be a pharmaceutical rep, and she's like, "Oh, I can help. I have water that will fix this." Talk to the hand. Anybody have anybody that's like kind of stubborn when they start talking to them about water? Yeah, I was the defining end of that. When Mercola was opposed to water, he actually used some of my research. That's how bad it was. Because the plates degrade, the mold and bacteria that builds up in the systems, they really are a bad deal. And so when she came in, she was fighting that person. And so basically we went and argued about 6 weeks. And who here goes to a chiropractor? The rest of you should. We went round and round, and she was laying on the table for about 5 minutes. She wasn't supposed to be there. And we'd been waiting for about 3 or 4 days for the test results to come in. And they came in while she was on the table, and I was talking to the doctor going, oh my God, oh my God. And they were talking about she's not metabolizing fats, she's not metabolizing proteins, she's not digesting food, she's hemorrhaging from the bowel, she's on full-on failure to thrive, and we have no solutions. And you got to get hit with basically what failure to thrive means is the doctor said, yeah, your child is going to die slowly. Mm. And Amy's laying there going, Dr. Michael, Skylar doesn't have to suffer because you're too stubborn to try the water. I'll let you try it for free. And you got to have that I could kill you now phase. My insurance is paid. This would work. And it was just overwhelming. And I literally turned the head off and had that, fine, bring it in, and I'll run the test and prove to you that your water doesn't work for shit. You can go now. And that was how it started. And she's like, really? I'm like, yeah. She's like, okay. And she left. And then I was like, that woman is unreal. And I regrouped, saw one patient. She's like, Dr. Michael, here's your water. The charge only lasts for 3 or 4 days. So you're going to need more water by Monday. Bye. And I literally took the water home that night, set it on the counter, and said, here's Sky's water, hence Sky Water. And Amy brought it. I heard from the doc, and it's not good news. And I literally looked at her and said, she's going to die. That's what they're saying, failure to. And she was just like stunned. And 4 days later, we got up the next morning and she didn't blow out everywhere. And we were like, well, that's a first. Belly got soft. The C. diff started to calm down. Somebody is drawn all over this thing. They're just having a blast. On day 10, so I called her up Monday morning, and I was like, you got some more of that water? Yeah. I'm having crow for breakfast, and I need water to wash it down. And she's like, is it working? Well, we're seeing some positive clinical findings we'd like to pursue further. It's like, Dr. Michael, just say it's working, you want more water. Okay, it's working, I want more water. Day 10, that first solid bowel movement, she actually was screamed and said there was a snake in the bathroom. And when I went running, it had a coiled poop, and she said that a snake crawled out of her belly. I did what every great parent did at the time, and I went, send to wife, I'm buying a water machine. 6 months later, we removed the feeding ports. She's doing ballet. She is crazy awesome, full of life, but it came down to, okay, I don't know why this water worked, and I will basically try just about anything. I don't care how wild and woo-woo and weird it is, and that's actually what our energetic lifestyle board is about. You can follow us on Facebook. If you go to my board, it'll say there's something posted there, and it talks about Abby, it talks about relationships, but it's going to be all the woo-woo, the science of woo-woo. And this to me was woo-woo water because it shouldn't have worked. And, you think water is water, but it's really not. This is the order in which water is horrible. Distilled water is the worst. Reverse osmosis water is the next worst water you can possibly have. It's kind of funny because everybody wants to do reverse osmosis under their sink and then hook up their Magic machine. And I'm like, so you want to kill it and make it as dead as possible. And I call water that comes out of the Congo machine after a reverse osmosis machine Frankenstein water. But anyways, filtered water is water that was contaminated, but they got rid of the junk. Alkaline water is water that they add more minerals to. Ionized water is water that's just been electrically charged. And then alkaline ionized water is water that they've added a bunch of minerals to and then hit it with electricity. All of these are bad for you. Distilled water is horrific. Reverse osmosis is geared in the medical world towards people with dialysis to get rid of toxins. A lot of the current research is showing that if you drink RO water, you're increasing your chance for rapid onset multiple sclerosis, MS, MD, Parkinson's, rapid onset osteoporosis, because these two waters are so sterile, they're highly acidic. And what that means is, in order to neutralize water that is 2.5 pH, you have to take calcium out of your bones to neutralize it. And so it's throwing your electrolytes out. They say, well, I have a remineralizer. Every single remineralizer that I have seen for an RO machine is basically calcium, magnesium, and potassium. They don't talk anything about salts, cell salts, bile salts, minerals, zincs, metals, the things that your body needs. And so what they'll do is they'll take water, they'll run it through a reverse osmosis machine, then they'll add in the alkaline minerals to change the pH, and then they hit it with an electric current. I don't recommend you try this, but if you have a pure RO machine and it works properly, you can take a bath in it and drop the dryer and toaster in there and you won't get electrocuted because it doesn't carry a current. And since your body is bioelectric, you're now replacing 72% of your body with something that doesn't carry a current and getting rid of all the minerals that do. There's another thing that's called electrolyzed reduced water, and that is actually what Kangen water is. I've had some conversations with Japan, and the conversation usually goes, no, alkaline ionized water, because they don't have alkalized. It's lost in translation. But it's very, very different. And what electrolyzed reduced water is we'll kind of get into it in a little bit, but you have to think about, why do you want electrolyzed reduced water? Well, we have a fish tank right here, and if you look at this fish tank, you have a fluid in there. We can call that water. It's like blood. You've got a respirator in there. That's like a lung. You've got a filter. There's your spleen. There's your kidneys. There's your liver. You've got microorganisms. You got bacteria, and you got fish. Well, anybody got one of these really expensive aquariums? Just dump a 2-liter bottle of Sprite into that thing and see what the owner does. They will freak out because you'll kill all their fish. But people don't think anything about drinking a 6-pack of soda during the day, or a 24-pack of beer on the weekend. Well, what happens is your water degrades and you now have a dirty fish tank. And that's what's going on with people all over the world. They're not unhealthy. They got a dirty fish tank. You can't do this to your body and be healthy. If you've been drinking, all of your bottled waters, this is what you look like. Sodas, this is what you look like. My drug of choice is coffee, kind of a snob, but I balance it out. I'm aware of what I'm doing. I like to go out and party. I know how to cheat, use Kangen ice cubes. Certain alcohols don't change the pH. 24 ounces of water, liver detox. And so you get these things that go, okay, here's what's good. I am going to be bad, and here's how I'm going to fix it. And so what you can do is you can clean up your aquarium so you're no longer stuck with this. Well, the way that you do that in the body is called cellular respiration. This was actually the basis of Otto Warburg's work. And I'm going to pause right here and tell you 2 things. Cellular respiration stuff out. Your cells pump like a jellyfish. So right here is something that's called an aquaporin. That's the high-speed hydrating mechanism for your body, and that's how you get water in and out of the cell. Otherwise, it has to kind of leak through the membrane. This right here is hemoglobin, which means bioavailable metabolic iron. Iron in an acidic environment rusts. Rusted hemoglobin cannot carry oxygen. Number 1 point for Otto Warburg. He proved that if you decreased a cell's oxygen level by 35% over 48 hours, you will no longer be able to produce energy through the mitochondria through Krebs cycle, so it shuts down and does glycolysis. He never made the statement disease can't exist in an alkaline environment. Anybody who posts that, you're lying. Anybody who posts that is using it as a marketing tool. There are thousands of diseases that love an alkaline environment. The fastest way you can discredit yourself is making stupid statements that somebody can Google in 10 seconds and go, well, that's an alkaline disease. Yes, it is. Oh, so just don't do it. He never said it. He said that if you have hydroxyl and oxygen in a cell, the mitochondria will function correctly and it will no longer become diseased. The fact that those two components combined are in an alkaline environment is not the same as taking a 2-liter bottle of Sprite, putting a half a cup of calcium bicarbonate or baking soda in it. That is now an alkaline solution. If you drink that, you will get sick. They're two very different equations. So what happens is you're getting oxygen and nutrition into the cell when it pops open. And when it crushes down, it's excreting CO2 and toxins. So that's how you get cellular respiration. That's how you detox the inside of this cell. When this happens with Kangen water, you're pulling in O2 and hydroxyl. The hydroxyl binds to the metabolic waste that's acidic and can now be excreted out of the cell and driven from the body. Kangen water will never change your blood pH unless you're a sick person. Why? Because your breathing buffers that. It's the bicarbonate buffer system. That's why you hyperventilate and you blow off more CO2. It's a balance. If it doesn't work, you're screwed. What it will do is it will buffer the intracellular matrix to normalize the cell and make it healthier, and it will change the intracellular pH. So if you work out a lot and you build up and get lactic acid, what you end up doing is you have to hydroxylate it to flush. The reason that it works with athletes and they can train harder is they have more available hydroxyl to flush the acid. Same thing with diabetics. The acidosis, the hydroxyl binds, neutralizes the pH, and it can flush from the body. These aquaporins are the high-speed plumbing systems. So if you have a water that fits into that, you can get the good stuff in and the bad stuff out even faster. How many people have said, well, if it was really good water, it would be natural. If it's a machine, it can't be natural water. Anybody ever hear that one?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's really kind of funny because electrolyzed reduced water is the most abundant water on the planet. Anybody like the beach, like the ocean?
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Call me. Ever watch an electrical storm at night on at the ocean and there's no rain, but it's just going crazy? Yeah, that's kind of like the whole Earth creating electrolyzed reduced water. And you can actually smell the ozone, and you're out there going, wow, I just feel the stress leaving me. Yeah, that's why. You're becoming electrolyzed and reduced. You're energized, literally. And so you have an ocean full of it. The fact that we've polluted our oceans is another story altogether. But that charge only lasts 3 or 4 days. So in the 50s and 60s, the Russians were working on the technology that created electrolyzed reduced water. And the Japanese, of course, hijacked the research and said, we'll make a machine. The research is based on what's called the dissociation of the water molecule. Anybody ever have a chemist go, you can't change water with electricity?
Mm-hmm.
All the time. And they're like, oh, really? I was doing a bunch of water research on dissociation of water, and it says you can. Can you explain that premise to me? The what? The dissociation of water. Well, I'm a chemist. I don't understand electricity. Oh, I see. So you don't know what you're talking about. Got it. Would you like to learn something, or do you already know it all? I love those debates, needless to say. So what happens is you take a water molecule and you hit it with a massive amount of electricity and you burst the bonds. And so you get hydrogen, oxygen, and hydroxyl. Now you get all kinds of other little things, and people will go, how many people have seen all the research? And everybody's like all on it's hydrogen water. Let's create hydrogen in the water. And they're all like all into it. And I'm like, cool, granted, your machine creates a great amount of hydrogen. Can you explain the oxygen and hydroxyl it produces? The what? The oxygen and the hydroxyl. Well, no, this is really, no, what you want is hydrogen. No, I know I want hydrogen. I also want oxygen and hydroxyl. What's the difference? They just don't know because they don't address that. What happens is if you have static electricity, things tend to repel each other. And so that's how you create the smaller clusters. It's not rocket science here. You're just electrocuting it, separating. Makes it easier to hydrate, breaks the bonds. Now, why that's important is the hydrogen works right here. It's what charges the cell membrane, so it makes the aquaporins more energized to bring stuff in and out. You use oxygen on pyruvate, drive it across the hydrogen-rich membrane into the cell where it's added with more electrons and more electricity and more oxygen, and you get energy. The waste products, you need hydroxyl to get out of here. So that's what these four products do. I don't care about the pH. The pH is a misnomer. It's an indicator of how much dissociation has happened. I want the hydrogen, oxygen, and hydroxyls because that's what works on the cells. So and that's the big difference between electrical versus chemical. Well, if I drink Kangen water, won't it neutralize my stomach acid? No. Alkaline water will, but Kangen water won't. Why? Because it's not chemically active. Electrolyzed reduced water will never build up in your system. Essentia is a phenomenal high pH bottled water, but you build up calcium, magnesium, and potassium. Same thing with real water. The new Defiance fuel does the same thing. It's got the chemicals in it to alter it. They're all dead waters that they're trying to mineralize to make look like something they're not. Those chemicals build up in your tissues. Most of the other machines, they're adding chemicals and minerals to the water to make it work. As soon as you absorb Kangen water, it's neutral. Why? Because the pH is based on hydroxyl and hydrogen. As soon as you drink it and it's absorbed, your body is using the electric charge component and it's using the hydroxyl to neutralize toxicity, and it's back to neutral. It doesn't require a chemical to be dumped into it to alter it, so it won't build up in the system. There's no negative research on it anywhere in PubMed under any circumstance for any condition that I'm aware of. The levels that you got to be careful of, yes. Source waters you got to be careful of, yes. I'm on a restricted amount of water, yes. But as far as electrolyzed reduced water, haven't found any. So what I said before, where the Russians kind of pursued the whole, let's see if we can destroy the bonds holding the water together to create more oxygen and hydrogen, the Japanese were like, we can do this. So they took the technology and they created the process, and then Enagic bought the company and said, look, let's put one of these on every household in America or in Japan, size of a Kangen machine. So there's your cluster of water molecules, and all you're really doing is breaking it down. The pH indicator is really indicating the level with which the water is broken apart, the amount of hydrogen, oxygen, and hydroxyl. It is not measuring the amount of alkaline minerals in the water. The process breaking up is much like if you had a cluster of grapes. This is a group of water molecules with a low electrostatic charge. They're all stuck together. If this is a cell and the neck is the aquaporin, you're going to take that grape off, dump it in there. Take that grape off, dump it in there. If you try to cram that whole thing over, it's just going to go everywhere. And so that's what you try to do. The water disassociates and it feeds really fast. pH scale. Red will make you rust. Blue will make you beautiful. So here's a 32-ounce glass of water. The pH is 9.5. I add the drops. There's the hydrogen, oxygen, hydroxyl. Over here is Sprite, a clear carbonated sweetened drink. That is 1 tablespoon right there. It has a pH way down here. I grew up on Mountain Dew and Diet Pepsi, and I just did. That was the thing when I was a kid. And I drank more than I'd even care to admit. And I realized it was bad, and I gave it up when I was in college. But I always drank some on time. I liked Full Throttle's, freely admitted favorite drink. And I was doing 1 or 2 a month, sometimes 3. But I would always drink an extra glass or 2 of water because I knew I had soda that day. Yeah. So I took this right here, and I recommend you do this at home. Don't go, well, Dr. Michael said. Take this, put a Sprite in there, put some of those drops in there, and then just start pouring water into it. And what you end up with is you now have a tablespoon of 3.0 acid water versus 2.5. And so when you dump this tablespoon of diluted Sprite into 32 ounces of water, your ratio is enormous. How many tablespoons are in 32 ounces of water?
A lot.
80 plus. And so what you end up with is it destroyed the whole 2 pounds of water. Well, how many people here go to fast food and they supersize it and they get the 32-ounce cola? They're drinking 2 pounds of acid. Oh, didn't think about it like that. Yeah, I know. You do now. So that's the main component of the hydration aspect of it. Does anybody want to ask questions on that part before